And we're going to lead the show off, obviously, with the transfer portal. Tis the season, right? Tis the holiday season. And what goes right along with the holiday season and the world of college football? It is recruiting. It is the transfer portal. It is the pandemonium, the free agency, if you will, that the offseason, at least the December/January offseason of college football, has truly turned into. And obviously, Clemson is like every other program around the country where we are affected by the transfer portal, albeit may be affected a bit less than the rest of the majority of college football, I should say. We're not out here like a Purdue or programs like that with 30 plus transfers, but we do have some losses to talk about tonight. Obviously, in previous shows, we've already covered the loss of Troy Stellato, Sherrod Colville, Noble Johnson, but we got a couple new ones to add to the list. Obviously, Jackson Crosby, a walk-on guy, hit the portal. You're probably going to see a few more of those type of guys hit the portal due to the roster going to eventually being cut down to 105 come July timeframe. So a lot of those walk-ons that Clemson tends to carry on the roster, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So no big surprise there for Jackson Crosby, but a couple scholarship guys, a couple guys that contributed this season, and A.J. Hoffler and Trey Williams entered the transfer portal. Trey Williams entering the transfer portal today, which may have come to some surprise to some Clemson fans because the portal was closed as of Saturday, but he is a graduate, so he can transfer anytime he wants. The transfer portal does not have to be open for him. He can transfer, as could any graduate person, player for Clemson can transfer at any point in time from now until the beginning of the season, if you will. So Trey Williams hits the portal. A.J. Hoffler hits the portal. Your reaction to those two guys specifically and the impact that it will have on the Clemson Tigers moving forward?
Obviously, Trey Williams being the biggest contributor of the two, I'll start with him. A guy that has been in the program a long time, a rotation piece that, has given Clemson a lot of good minutes at good snaps, I should say. This isn't basketball. At the defensive tackle position, struggled with injuries early in his career, and it had been kind of in and out of the lineup, but a really productive player when he was in, and, had Clemson's only 2 sacks in the playoff game against Texas. I think you're going to feel this one a little bit. I think that this one hurts a decent bit. We'll see what, depending on the decision of DeMonte Capehart, and kind of how the defensive tackle room sort of rotation sort of shakes out next year. But Trey was an experienced player that you could have gotten back this year. But when you're focusing on a lot on roster retention, there is there is an element of some guys you're going to have to let go. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened here, but I think it's an opportunity for Trey to get back and go somewhere where he can be a full-time starter, because I think he would be a starter on a lot of college football programs. I thought maybe the NFL draft would have been an option for him, but sometimes with injury, guys with injury history, that can affect it. But we'll see how big of a loss it is ultimately for the defensive tackle depth, and with the decision of DeMonte Capehart. But I think Trey is a guy you could have used next year. I think I think that hurts a little bit. And then with A.J. Hoffler, a guy that got in spot duty at times, some garbage time. Occasional, important snaps, but a player with a lot of potential that I don't think has fully realized it yet. I think he's a guy that you couldn't get him in. I don't think he was big enough, good enough at setting the edge in order to really play a whole lot. And it was very clear at the times he did get in why there was a hesitancy to play him in some big time minutes, even with the question marks you had at defensive end. But it is a hit on your defensive end depth. Clemson probably is going to have to survey the portal for another depth piece at defensive end. I don't think you're going to get another Will Helt type, but you need a guy. You need a body that can give you some decent minutes, decent snaps if asked to. because I have a lot of questions about that room right now, even with the addition of Will Help. So I think that one. I think these are two losses that I think Clemson might have to address, depending on. I think defensive end they're going to have to address. We'll see about defensive tackle, but best of luck to those two guys. I think AJ Hoffler's already been linked to Georgia Tech, and that there's no secret, kind of what Georgia Tech's doing in the portal and in recruiting right now. And we'll see about Trey. I've heard some speculation. I've heard some rumblings that he's been linked to Oklahoma. I think that would make a lot of sense. Reunite with Brent Venables, and I think he would play and start on that defensive line, or at least be one of the front runners to start on that defensive line. So and reunite with his old defensive coordinator I think it would make a lot of sense if they take him. So best of luck to those two young men.
Yeah, absolutely. I think two guys that, really Trey Williams, not excited to lose a guy like Trey Williams, right? He has contributed pretty significantly this season. I think he had 300 snaps on the season. You saw his presence in that game against Texas where he had 2 sacks against Quinn Ewers. So clearly he's a guy that has a certain skill set, but I think that with the return of Woods and you got, Stephylan Green, you got a bunch of young guys in that defensive tackle room. I think he's just looking for a role where he probably is on the field a little bit more. And I don't think he felt that was going to be the case going forward at Clemson. So I think his decision makes sense. You bring up Oklahoma. I think that would make a ton of sense with Brent Venables and the familiarity there. And he would certainly help that defense that needs some help. And then AJ Hoffler, I think he's a guy with potential, right? And that's what he showed on the field this year was he does have a lot of potential that he could grow into, but he's just not that guy right now. And if he's looking for significant playing time, it's not going to happen at Clemson right now. He saw the writing on the wall when Clemson went out and brought in Will Helt from Purdue. I mean, that guy's going to take the bulk of the snaps opposite TJ Parker this year. That's why they brought him to Clemson. That's the reason that he signed with Clemson. And AJ Hoffler sees a move like that, and he's like, okay, well, time for me to move on. And if, as much potential as I think AJ Hoffler has and some flashes that he showed this season, he showed a lot of not good things on tape this year too. You talk about setting the edge. You talk about the run fits, all that kind of stuff. So never good to lose guys, but I think Clemson filled it well with Will Helt. But now that you have the exit of AJ Hoffler, I do agree that Clemson should probably look into the portal for maybe another defensive end immediately right now. And then there could be some other positions of need going forward. Linebacker, you talk about the defensive tackle, maybe you need a depth piece there. But they could wait until the April window to address some of those issues once they get out of spring practice and evaluate where everybody is, how far those young guys have come. So it'll be interesting to see, but the official portal is closed for all of Clemson's undergrad players. Like I said, we still, it's not out of the realm of possibility that a grad could up and hit the portal. But we have weathered the bulk of the transfer portal storm, at least before spring practice, right? There'll be another one in April after spring practice, but obviously the big news of the portal season, I guess, for Clemson was that we took a player not named a quarterback as a portal transfer, and Tristan Smith and Will Hill. We've talked about those guys and how excited we are to have those guys as Clemson Tigers and how much they're going to contribute. Will Helt's going to be a starter for this team this year. Tristan Smith, I don't think he's a starter for the team next year, but he's definitely, I think, going to contribute to that team, and he's a much-needed body type in that room and a guy that has proven that he can produce in a big way. So excited about the transfer portal as far as the work that Clemson's done so far. I don't think any Clemson fan out there could really complain about what has gone on so far in the transfer portal season for the Clemson Tigers.